2025 season. It continues to Knoxville as we welcome in the voice, the longtime passionate voice of Nebraska softball, Nate Rohr.
Holy lungs.
Love it, Gary. Love it.
Hey,
how we doing?
Good. Hey, I just want to start out with something here, and I want you to explain yourself, all right?
Okay.
You and I have known each other for a long time. I love the stand-up selfies. I love everything else you like to do. You like to do, and you do well. Where did this one come from this weekend? That outside corner stretched like my waistband after a crawfish boil.
Frustration and bewilderment at the home plate umpire being a little elastic with her outside corner, and I was trying to express how that outside corner was stretching, and being a person with food pretty consistently on his brain, I thought that would be the best way to express how that outside corner was becoming a little larger than it was at the beginning of the game. It's kind of about the only disappointment of the weekend. I didn't really get any great Cajun food. The ball club, I appreciate very much. They take care of our food, but it's usually catered and it's usually national chains and such. And so I did not get any crawfish or any great Cajun, but that was about the only miss from the weekend. So maybe it came from my longing for a real Cajun meal before we left.
How were the grits?
The grits were okay. Perfectly sufficient. Needed some salt and pepper. But they were a nice little side dish, and it's one of those things. I mean, they taste fine. I'm all right with them, but because it, you don't often get them up here in Nebraska. It's like, okay, this is a novelty. I had better enjoy this. So,
hey, before we get into this past weekend and what is ahead, what happened with the misinformation on Start Times Network that was released earlier and now has been corrected by the NCAA?
Gary, I've been chasing my tail on that here too, and we saw that come out on this morning during our morning show down here. But I don't understand why they released that first set of start times, networks, etc. Because the first release had Nebraska playing in the afternoon tomorrow or Friday on ABC and playing on ABC on Saturday. And now Nebraska playing in the evening Friday on ESPN2 and then later in the afternoon on Saturday. And just asking the people I know in the athletic department, hey, what happened? Unfortunately, that caught them by surprise too. So I would love to tell you what happened, but nobody that I know knows what happened either.
Nate, I've always been an admirer of your work, and I'm glad that this weekend, because of the great run this team has gone on, you have rightfully gotten your flowers in terms of the phenomenal job that you do on the Husker Sports Network. And, your passion towards Nebraska softball is definitely unmatched. And so 2 years ago, when you were told, hey, Jordy Ball, arguably the best player in all of softball, is coming to Nebraska, she's going to be a Cornhusker. Did you imagine that this is the journey that you would have taken with this team to the playoffs and then her getting hurt and all that?
Well, thanks for the kind words, first of all. And second of all, not quite. This is not quite what I saw. I mean, I figured Jordy would be an excellent pitcher. If you'll recall back when Jordy signed with Nebraska, a couple weeks after the national championship run with Oklahoma in 2023, one of the big talking points was that she was going to hit as well as pitch.
Yeah.
And so I've seen pitchers hit on a regular basis, and they usually do all right to decently well, but it feels like it's something secondary to them, right? feels like something they're also doing, but they're really focusing on their pitching. And yet here's Jordy Ball, and she is pitching at an All-American level. And then if you just put everything she was doing offensively in its own folder, that's an All-American resume too. So that's the part that has really taken me by surprise, the way she has been able to sustain her offensive game, the way she's been able to keep the offense separate from the pitching. But of course, if you're succeeding offensively, it's probably helping you more than hurting you pitching wise. But the way that she has just plugged into the lineup and not been just pretty good, not just been a helpful part, but really the one driving the bus offensively is where she has exceeded my expectations. You hear the Nebraska coaching staff talk about it, and I think this is pretty close to what they expected, but I think even this weekend, going 5 for 5, 4 home runs, 7 walks, this might have been the point where finally even their expectations were exceeded.
That's why I picked her in fantasy college softball. I had a really, really good weekend. Thank you to Jordy. Nate, tell me something about this team that doesn't involve Jordy Ball on why they're so successful.
It maybe not directly to Jordy Ball, but I think it's 1 through 9 in the order, including Jordy. But I think they really work hard at trying to cover the cerebral part of the game. They're well covered in terms of preparing for the pitcher that they're going to face, getting the swings that they need to during the week to make sure that they know what they're looking for from that pitcher, ready to attack that pitcher's strengths. Quite frankly, that was one of the things that scared me about the Southeastern Louisiana games. And of course, the scores would tell you that fear was unfounded. But, Southeastern Louisiana had 7 people that had pitched for them, and 3 of them regularly. And one thing that sometimes gives this team trouble is when they have so well prepared for one pitcher and they jump on her and get a few runs on her, that when the opponent brings in another pitcher, they have difficulty adjusting to her and getting locked in and picking up where they were. And yet this week, now I know Southeastern's pitchers aren't quite as good as even maybe the top half of the Big Ten, but this weekend, they were able to adjust very well from pitcher to pitcher. So just the way this team prepares, the entire way, they work hard in the cages, they work hard on the mental side of things. And, you think about somebody like Samantha Bland, who started this season really slowly, was not hitting the ball very well, and she was in the 3 spot for most of the first half of the year. And I think she was burdened a little more because she had moved in from left field to third. And so she was struggling offensively and dealing with all that. But she worked her way through the slump, and now she's as potent a bat as anybody. And so this team's really strong work ethic, I think, is why they're in the position they're in.
Do you think it might be a slight disadvantage for this team that they didn't get to play LSU because they're now going to go ahead and play a very high-level SEC team in Tennessee? And, no offense to Southeastern or UConn, but definitely a major step up in competition.
I could see it being a slight disadvantage in this way, Matt, that they have not seen a lot of elite pitching in the last 6 weeks, 2 months. And if you'll recall the second game at the Big Ten tournament, when they faced Caitlin Terry from UCLA, it felt like it took them a while to pick her up and to get after her. And I mean, look, Carlin Pickens is in a category of her own.
Sure.
Throwing upper 70s, ERA under 1, Southeastern Conference Pitcher of the Year. I mean, you could play in the SEC and still need to ratchet it up a little more to be ready to go against her. But even Sage Marjetko is a really good pitcher. So I see what you're saying, and I can see I could see that being a bit of a factor going in. Now, I think that'll be resolved by that first game.
Sure.
But just the fact that they've not seen a pitcher in the neighborhood of Pickens or Marjetko lately, other than Terry, I can kind of go along with what you're saying there.
I always learn something new when I talk to Rhonda, and I've known Rhonda for a long time. You, of course, know her almost as well as anybody, and she's in her 33rd year, so she's on the back nine. She's overcome the ups and downs of seasons that don't work out so well. She got, we had the thing in 19, which Bill Moose did the right thing and reinstated Rhonda. She's made it to 33 years. She gets to experience this moment where Bolin is packed. You've ridden the journey with her for a while. Well, we talk a lot about Jordy and Sammy and Ava and the rest of this team. What does it mean to Rhonda to have a front row seat to this type of team and this type of excitement around a sport that she has lived and breathed for 33 plus years?
Well, it's interesting. I did a interview with her for our morning show down here in Lincoln on KLIN that we ran this morning, and I asked her about that, because things were pretty dark.
Yes,
especially in the summer of 2019, where how she went about things was being called into question, and it really hurt this program because all these players who have transferred back in didn't come to Nebraska because of the uncertainty that surrounded the program, most of all Jordy Ball. So, there would be a point where you would have so much doubt about yourself and what you've done and what you may be able to do. But, beyond just the wins and losses, beyond just winning a regional, I think Rhonda Revelle feels very good about the culture of this program, the fact that it's a very player-driven culture. That I think was one of the adjustments she made in the wake of the suspension in 2019 was really focusing on trying to build ownership in that locker room and trying to build leaders in that locker room. And it started with Courtney Wallace, an Omaha kid, and Olivia Farrell, an Elkhorn kid, and Carly Sievers, a York kid. And so they were able to strengthen this program to a place where Jordy Ball looked at it and said, yeah, this is where, I built something good at Oklahoma, but I feel good about coming home and being a part of this. And, you just run down the list, the Kamensons, Hoffman, Bacon, et cetera, to where the infrastructure of this program is strong enough to take in those big-time players. So I know she's really proud of this team, really proud of the work that they've put in, and really happy with the work ethic that they've shown throughout the years. So I know Rhonda is very, very proud of this bunch, maybe as proud as she's been.
All right, Nate, give us the nitty-gritty here. What does this team have to do in order to defeat Tennessee and find their way to the College World Series?
This is going to sound really simplistic, but it's going to be very, very difficult. And it's score runs. I think Tennessee's got a decent offense. They score about 6 runs a game, but they're not an elite offense. But Nebraska's facing an elite pitching staff. In Pickens and Marjetko. And so if this team can find a way to put up 3 runs, 4 runs, give themselves some breathing room with Jordy Ball and her excellent resume in the circle, they've got a chance to win this super regional. So it's really a question of how are they able to push across runs against a great Tennessee pitching staff, and that's getting people on base. They did a terrific job of getting the leadoff hitter on base. I don't know how many innings. The first batter of the inning was on this week. But get people on early and then move them over and get that clutch hit to score them. And I think that's the real key. How do they hit in the clutch, and how are they able to push runs across? And, I don't know if you can rely on a home run ball. Now, I
Sure.
thought that going into last weekend, and Jordy Ball hits 4 of them, and Cusack hits a couple, and Samantha Bland hits 1. But, Tennessee's given up 21 home runs this year. So uh, I don't I'm hopeful that they can string some hits together, because I'm a little worried about how do they score if they can't hit the long ball.
Well, we get at least 2 more stand-up selfies, so that's the most important thing.
There you go.
Hey, I appreciate it, my friend. Fantastic work. I mean, I like, as Matt alluded to, more people are listening to you in this run, but people that have been with you from the start, they know how much you love the sport and how beautiful a picture you deliver. And I'm so happy for you as well.
Well, hey, thank you for the kind words, Gary. And this team's been so wonderful to cover. And, the program always has been, but this group in particular has been a lot of fun. And the journey's still going. So for those who are with it, who have been with us, stay with us. And for those who want to hop on, we still have